Hello everyone. My name is Sharon Cohen and I'm the host of this podcast. And the podcast has always been yoga therapy for the last 2 years, but I want to change the name to Reclaiming Our Well-Being. I want to have broader conversations with different people from different fields. There's just so many wonderful things going on, and there's so much beauty in this world and in life. And I don't want to be limited just by yoga therapy, even though yoga covers the whole spectrum of life.
You're going to delve into the profound depths of the philosophy. You're going to be, fill your life with awe and amazement over the grand spiritual tradition, of India and elsewhere. And that's your own path. You authored it. What about, but how do I make money? Oh, yeah, right. Yeah. I got to figure out a way to make my passion. You're following your bliss. Yeah. And now you've got to find a way to make it, transform it so it generates money. And you're doing that. God bless you. Just go along and do what they're expected to do by society, by the parents, by the society. Even if they're a big deal, like a doctor, maybe the person went through medical school because his father demanded it, or expected it. And it wasn't right for them at all, right? Mm-hmm. So how many are living their lives to please others, or just because they were told that's what you're supposed to do? They're told their religion, that's what you're supposed to believe, so they believe it. They never question or challenge anything. Okay?
I think they did as a child, but then you get suppressed or rejected or abandoned that you don't do it again.
And then the society makes you comfortable in your niche, so you never do have to question.
And then society becomes your parent, doesn't it? The issue is that we haven't grown up. And I think that's the heroine's journey or the hero's journey. It's growing up.
Growing up and authentic, someone who authored their own path.
Yes.
And reaches a certain maturity. Because yes, the culture keeps us immature and unevolved and undeveloped, so that we can keep buying their products. It's all the commercial,
system.
So the person who does that with their life, the couch potato, whatever. I'm not saying, all of us do that to some extent. And once you're retired, you have license to do that. But your whole life, what kind of gift, you see? What did you make out of your life? What gemstone did you create in your life out of your hard work and heroic effort? Yeah. That was an authentic path.
And I think, a beautiful, just want to add, do you know David Graeber, the anthropologist? Have you heard of him?
Yes.
He wrote the book, Debt, the first 5,000 years, and then he wrote Bullshit Jobs, which is kind of kind of about this, because he said he spoke to so many intelligent people who just said they had bullshit jobs, and their life meant nothing. And they said, if I died tomorrow, no one would notice because my job didn't do anything. And people feel terrible about it. But
it's so thinks, I'm sorry, I don't mean to.
That's okay.
Jung thinks what you just described, that is Jung called the disease of our era, of the 20th century, depression.
Yes.
And he said his view is that depression is caused by meaninglessness.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you have to have meaning. We are creatures of meaning. That's why we have myth. That's why we have the Bible. That's why we tell stories.
Right. Yeah. Stories. So this is going to give us meaning in life. If you're depressed, it's because you're lacking in a sense of meaning and purpose and value. Yeah. And you're encouraged to have no meaning. You're encouraged to just go to your job and go home.
Yeah.
But now, when you mentioned bullshit jobs, I have a picture. I guess it can't be seen on the screen, but it's such a great picture.
Yeah, it's a man with a suit and a briefcase, so just your normal average worker, and he has beautiful butterfly wings that are all different colors and flying away from Wall Street, it looks like.
And another businessman is walking past him on the ground.
Yeah.
So our picture. Okay, so the word for soul in Greek is psyche, right? Yes. And the psyche is undergoing its transformation. Well, the word psyche means something else too. It means, here's what I do in drum roll, it means butterfly.
Yeah, butterfly.
The word butterfly in Greek is psyche. So butterflies are little souls flitting around. And what the butterfly goes through in its life cycle is parallel to the hero's journey, is parallel to what our psyche will go through.
Yes.
Of course, it's a caterpillar who is confined to a quotidian life on the ground. And then it dies to its small self. It makes a tomb out of its own materials, dies in there, dies to the small self, the caterpillar self, transforms into a magnificent, glorious being. And a lot of them die. They never make it. It takes heroic effort
Really?
to push way out of the little chrysalis, and then it's a magnificent creature. So the butterfly's journey is, symbolic of the soul's journey. So I have a picture here of two businessmen. It's like, it doesn't matter what the job is. You can have a bullshit job.
Yeah.
But are you creating greatness out of your soul? Are you soaring as a butterfly? Are you transforming your soul, moving towards soul evolution? You can be, a janitor and still have an active spiritual life where you're evolving yourself. And
that's true, but I think a big issue is if you spend 40 hours of your week doing something that is meaningless.
Yeah, because
and you could be doing something that's positive when you see there's so much or so many people or so many things that need aid or need your genius, whatever that gem might be.
Your gift, right. So that would be a meaningful job, right. And in Buddha's line, the Eightfold Path, one of them is right livelihood. Do something in the world that's good and right and will help others, not hurt others. But we're trying to say here that a person can still be living their authentic life, even whatever job. Fairly meaningless job. It's what else are you doing? Are you also evolving? Are you going to shamanic retreats? How is your soul?
Even then, even this, and I found this really great from Graeber, again, this David Graeber. He was saying if we respected the job of caring more and the job of cleaning, because that is what we do. Yes, he said, a cup is made once, but you clean it 1,000 times.
Right.
Yeah, and the same, like the most important jobs are the ones that are for education, caring, cleaning. And if people were more respected and better paid, because that's kind of what shows that you're respected, then you wouldn't feel that job is meaningless.
Exactly,
You know what I mean?
That's again the society's perspectives and what it values and doesn't value and what it represses. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
But one can have a nothing kind of job and still be a great seeker, and evolve yourself. And conversely, one can have a really terrific, fabulous job. One could be college professor, or a doctor, lawyer, and be depressed and be full of a meaningless, feelings that you're not evolving. So spirituality, religions are supposed to provide that for people, right? And they used to. But in the West, religions got made into these systems, these intellectual systems, meaning there's a set of ideas and beliefs you have to believe in. Not the experiential, the experience of awe.
Devotion.
Yeah, that would cure depression, and that's what Jung thinks. The cure for depression, what he does with his clients who are depressed is he says, get really depressed, go into it, and it'll, move through and learn to express it. And he thinks that one needs a mystical experience of some type, an experience of the numinous, and that will transform your life and change your life. And it's a cure for depression, not Prozac, not electric shock therapy, not any kind of drug, but the experience of the numinous. The doctor can't just poof, poof, that's my magic wand. Do that. Give him a mystical experience, So, but in life, that can happen. So there's a really amazing, famous case. The gentleman who founded AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm not sure it's him or the other founder, was a patient of Dr. Jung's in Zurich, in Switzerland, in the 20s. And his problem that he came to Dr. Jung with was compulsive drinking. And he just could not stop himself. And he had tried and tried everything, He finally came. Can you imagine Carl Jung is your own doctor? You know, geez. Oh, man. You're sitting there taking up his time talking about yourself, and it's Carl Jung. I can't.
Now you're
So,
protecting Sharon. You're protecting
Jung tried and tried with him, and he thought, what you're going to need is a mystical experience. This is what's going to transform you, and you can't just do that. So he couldn't help this man. He couldn't help him stop drinking. Later, the man came back to the U.S., and it's decades later. It's like 40 years later.
Oh,
Jung gets a letter from him saying, "Oh my God, you were right." And he had some kind of extraordinary experience, and it changed him, changed his life. He never drank again. That's what cured his alcoholism. That's what Jung meant. And he and this other guy founded AA. And what Jung's concept of an earth-shattering, life-changing, numinous experience, which is a cure for depression and all and alcoholism and all kinds of other things, that the person can't just cause that to happen, right? And
circumstances. Yeah.
yeah. I know what I was going to say. I'm sorry. This gets translated. Jung's concept of a direct numinous experience gets translated in AA into their 12-step program. It's like step 3. I don't know. I'm not speaking from experience. It's step where they're supposed to, quote, turn it over to a higher power.
Yes.
Whatever you understand to be the higher power.
You have
That's
a
a little
serenity
bit of
there.
mysticism.
Yeah. You have
That's
the
not what Jung meant. Sorry.
okay.
Jung did not mean turn it over, give it to Jesus.
Uh,
That's projecting. Give it to someone else and they'll take care of it for you. That's not what he meant. He meant you have a profound, life-changing, mystical experience. Then you won't drink anymore.
okay. Okay.
And now I'm
Interesting.
far afield from the Hera again.
Yes. There's too much ground to cover.
Hero's
We're
journey
back to the chrysalis.
yeah, path of individuation.
Okay, so let me maybe start the question. So what are the steps of the journey?
Yeah, okay, and that's where I had started, and then I'm going to tell you how it's different in the female line.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, so I was saying you're in your regular life, and then you get a call, the extraordinary breaks in, and in Jesus' words, the kingdom breaks in like a thief in the night, that kind of thing. And you get the call to adventure. You get the mission statement. So we have 2 really wonderful, exactly parallel hero journeys that I use. I give a course, and I use 9 hero journeys. Joseph Campbell's book, The Hero with 1,000 Faces. There are thousands of stories one could choose from. So among the 9, I use Star Wars. So it's Luke Skywalker, and one of my Hera journeys is Dorothy, who went to Oz, the Wizard of Oz, right? Now, both of them are parallel. Just watch. They're both with an aunt and uncle. They've been given away at birth. And the night before the adventure starts, both of them voice. They're both farm kids. And they're in the way, or it's a drag. Another season, I got to work another season. I want to go to the academy this season. And Dorothy, the night before, she says, "Oh, there's nothing for me to do. Will my life ever, what's ever going to happen to me?" And Luke Skywalker says, "Nothing will ever happen to me here." Bam, within 24 hours. Aunt and uncle are fried, and he's off, to Alderaan to fight against the evil empire. And she is knocked, unconscious by the hurricane, and she's off to Oz in a grand journey, which we know is a dream. All right. So, see, the call comes out of nowhere, the shock. The ordinary was broken into. And then the mission statement, you have a mission. You've got to get this droid to Alderaan. Okay. She's got to get home. It's amazing how often the goal is to get home. So home symbolizes wholeness. So in Jungian thought, there's going to be a psychological word or logos word for something and a mythic word for it. So Jung calls this the path of individuation, the journey through which the ego self goes into the unconscious and discovers unearths discovers and incorporates all the sub personality elements to create a condition of wholeness. And that's the end of the story, right? So all the different figures are the hero bringing the complex together. So the psychological word is individuation, and the word is ego, who enters into the unconscious. Whereas the mythic word is hero's journey. That's the path of individuation. And the ego is called the hero or Hera, who's now going to enter into the field of adventure, the unconscious, journey there, find the contrasexual figures. That's so Dorothy finds 3 male figures. That's the animus. And she has to awaken each one of them. Her animus she finds in a frozen, undeveloped state. So she awakens, she unleashes the scarecrow who has the brain, and the Tin Man is frozen who has the heart, and the lion is a little lion, scared of his own tail. That is the level of Dorothy's own sense of courage, her shadow and animus. See, and Luke Skywalker gets together with Han Solo and Chewbacca, and they travel, and Obi-Wan Kenobi, and they travel to get the princess. So the princess is the anima figure. The shaggy animal is the shadow element. And notice how Toto, who is the shadow, the animal, and he's a trickster figure. If you watch closely, you'll see Toto gets her into every bit of trouble she's ever in the whole picture.
Yes, I have seen that in the beginning.
He gets her in, it's his fault in the first place because he's digging up the flowers of the neighbor. She wants him destroyed. Yeah. So Toto is the trickster factor that leads into the realm of adventure. The same characters in Star Wars is R2-D2, who has the plans to the Death Star, and he's the one that gets him into trouble and actually leads him away, to save his life because the stormtroopers come for Aunt and Uncle. I'm assuming you all know these stories.
Yeah.
So here's the separation from the ordinary and the shock and the call to adventure, right? And then the mentor, the journey itself, the mentor is located, descent into the underworld of the adventure, coming together of the complex, encounter with the strange threshold guardians, adventure in the realm of the unknown, ordeals of the quest, courage found and exhibited, tasks and trials, transformational moments. As I'm saying it all, I'm thinking also of the Lord of the Rings and Gandalf leading, the wise old man, and all the tasks and trials and doorway demons and guardians, dragon slaying, confrontation with death. Now, it's so interesting in the hero's journey. This is all these steps. Every journey might be different, not have every one of these steps, you understand? But this one is absolutely necessary, the confrontation with death. At some point, what we call ego death will be required of the hero.
Yes.
The Nikia, it's called. You have to slay yourself. You have to be willing to sacrifice the self. Now, you don't literally die, but some aspect of you dies and is reborn. So the hero has to go into the underworld. So you transform out of death and then is reborn. Coming upon the treasure, the boon that he's going to bring back to all humanity. Gaining of the boon and then the return with the gift. And the hero is changed, comes back to the same place, but everything looks different because the hero has transformed. You're not done until you bring your gift, your boon that you did all this heroic for to the world. It's called multiplicatio. You multiply it by thousands, and projectio. You give it to the world. You didn't do this just to put the thing on your wall and go home and you did to save others, to help others, to bring your gift to the world. Okay, so there's the skeleton of the hero's journey. Now, I know you had something to say. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. I'm trying to keep my mouth shut so you can actually
roll. I'm gonna roll.
Don't get sidetracked. Yeah, when you were telling that, I was like, oh, that's what the Mahavidyas are. The 10 wisdom goddesses. They're also about these getting out the gifts and then chopping your head off and offering that, which is the abundance from within the self and being fearless.
Die,
Yeah.
But there are people like the Native American Vision Quest is exactly this. It's a hero's journey.
Okay.
And this is
Yes.
real and literal, and people would be sent out, and the Native Australian walkabout, it's the same concept, and people would die. The young man would die. Sometimes this is a adolescent passage ritual, and you go out with one name, and when you come back in the Sioux tradition, you're called a brave. That's how they get the braves, because you exhibited bravery, you exhibited heroic behavior. And then when they come back, their old self has died, and they get a new name now. And the name comes from something meaningful, something that happened on their journey. It's Sitting Bull, or a crazy horse, or I saw a lame deer, or an eagle swoop down, eagle feather. All right. That one in, what's it called? Dances with Wolves. She was called Stands with a Fist. There's something essential about your being that earn your name. Your name is your identity. In our culture, the name is given from the father, your last name, and your parents dream up a name for you. You don't earn it. You're not, growing into yourself. And we don't have the rituals anymore of transformation for the adolescent and so on. And I've said this is a whole other theme, but my theme called the Company of Braves, I claim that this would be a much safer, more peaceful world if we had or could revive the adolescent, especially adolescent male rituals, where the young man has to prove himself to himself and to his peers and to his elders that he's a man, go on a grand ordeal or quest. This is lacking entirely in our culture now.
I think we need all sorts of, I agree with you 100%.
That's right.
Yeah.
But the danger and violence in our world, I'm trying to claim, if the shadow could be, embraced, if young males had the opportunity to go out and fight, against nature, this is just what the Boy Scouts does. They have the right idea, and the young man becomes an Eagle Scout, And how do they earn their, patches and so on? By being good, by helping others, by facing down nature. If they went out and faced an ordeal early in life, they earned self-respect. You see, it's so important. And they earn respect from their peers. If they don't get that opportunity, they're constantly seeking self-respect and respect. So they go into gangs, and the gangs are a company of braves, but it's all distorted. Now you kill people to get, your gang status. The generations, it's so interesting. World War I, World War II, when the young men, they all went into the war, right? In World War II, all our dads were in the war. Well, that generation got a really good opportunity to show bravery, to show heroic effort. And they stopped Hitler. They literally did, right? And they can come home as they're still in their 20s, and then they married and had the baby boom. That's us. They had millions of children. That's us. Because when they came home and got into a comfortable, settled life, they don't need to prove themselves anymore. They already got it proven to themselves what they're made of, manhood. They had to show it, right? And then what the next generation is, the beat generation. What fight did they have? What righteous battle? Because young men, crave that and need that. They didn't have a righteous fight. They were rebels without a cause.
Yes.
And then they come to our generation, the baby boomers. Boy, we had a righteous fight out there in the streets. The fight against the war, they sending us to war. And then all the revolutions, the women's movement, the gay rights movement, civil rights movement. That was a war. That was a battle, So our generation feels we've got some self-respect because we went to battle. We proved ourselves. After that, kids who were teenagers in the 70s, what battle? What is disco? And then it goes into punk. They're craving a fight. They're craving power. So if we had these adolescent rituals, I think we'd have a safer world. Anyway, see how I get off the track? I'm sorry.
But there's so many things going on in the world, and I think it's important to point out the connections. So it's not getting off track.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
one thing leads to another. You can edit this. It sounds good, all interesting stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
I wanted to focus on two things that are different for the female, for the Hera. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah. Can I
Okay.
just, before we go into
Sure,
it, I
sure.
wanted
I'm
to
sorry
ask,
for talking too
no, 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 I love it. Um,
much.
yeah, and like this, you can get a drink. I wanted to ask, why do you think it's so important? I mean, there was a point where I was doing yoga and I thought, we don't need to go to the extremes. And I think that's part of Buddhism and also part of the culture that we have now, that we want everything to be this kind of stable, opaque, without the extremities of going through the challenge, the struggles, the depths. Why do you think the depths are so important? I mean, I agree with you 100%. We need to challenge ourselves. We need to see what our real strength is.
Yeah, yeah.
There is this the huge ideology that believes we don't need it. And
Yeah.
why do you think it's important?
Well, in a word, the transformation doesn't happen. If you're too comfortable and complacent, you're never going to create a heroic life. You're never going to create gold and gems in yourself. And
Because because you need to be pushed or what?
well, here I'll kind of describe it alchemically.
Yes.
And your comment, I'm also thinking that life will put you there anyway. Life is going to put all of us through, or
That's what we're going through now, I think, because
yeah,
a lot of people haven't done the work. So now we're all forced to do it together.
life will put you there if you're ready for it or not. For maybe for all of us, I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know. Sometimes I think every person is forced to be heroic. Other times I think 80% they went to sleep, and the
Yeah,
20%
I agree. Yeah.
the transformers and shakers and innovators and so on.
Yeah.
Boy, now we get to see those kitties. Okay.
They're beautiful. They're
Thank you.
gorgeous.
Yin
Yeah.
and yang. That's Psyche and Eros.
Girls. Okay, they're standing up.
Psyche is another of our Heras that I tell, go into her story. But um, and with the philosophy and it relates to the millennial generation and what's being called Generation Z also,
Mhm.
whom a lot of us have had direct experience of them. We college professors certainly have. This business of being snowflakes is not a joke. It's a real dynamic going
Snowflake.
on.
What's that? I don't know the expression.
Snowflakes, the younger people, starting with the millennials and the Z generation, they are very demanding and kind of entitled and believe that college should be a place where they are protected. No one is supposed to challenge them. No one is supposed to hurt their feelings.
Oh,
And their
yes.
feelings are hurt by the slightest little thing. The
Wokeness.
professor is funny at me. I don't appreciate that. I want them fired. And they're doing it and getting away with it. So we must walk on eggs and not upset them, never upset the students. That is kind of going toward this concept of why do we have to undergo difficulty and
Yeah.
unhappiness in life? Can't we have everything protected and we're loved and cared about? And here's my darling baby. Why do we have to suffer? What's the deal here? Well, if you didn't, you'll end up, entitled brats, like
Like that now.
if everything's handed to you. You don't evolve because you get accustomed to everything being handed to you. So I've seen it in later years. I'm glad I retired when I did, because I started to see the students really change in the last, since about, I don't know, I started to see it in 09, and then into the 20 teens. It's kind of like, okay, they come into my classroom, plunk down with an attitude, full of attitude. Okay, I'm here. Where's my reward? I'm here. Where's my A plus?
Wow.
Get A plus. You
Wow.
don't give me A plus, you're in trouble. I run in and get you in trouble. And it's coming from when they were children, this whole movement to make sure every child gets the prize and nobody's competitive and nobody loses and everybody wins. Well, it's not realistic in life. And
Yeah.
it's going to create a situation, it already is, where they're not going to evolve and life will hit them. Midlife crisis will hit them.
I think
And
it's already hitting them now,
get
you know?
yeah,
Yeah.
and they won't have the resources to
To deal
deal with
with.
because they've had everything, washed clean for them all the time. And meanwhile, here's the suppressed, ugly, repressed shadow is you mustn't say anything that hurts my feelings. But meanwhile, what am I doing all the time on Twitter?
Bitching. Yeah.
Spewing ugly, ugly, disgusting language and full of vitriol and hatred,
Yeah.
bullying, but you better not say anything against me, but I can say whatever I want,
Yeah.
So it's so if we never have a challenge or suffering or put through any kind of ordeal, we'll get accustomed to everything being handed to us. We won't be able to handle challenges in life. And if I refer to alchemy, so what creates the gemstone is the wrenching of the earth, and
And the
pain,
pressure.
pressure, intense pressure, and freezing and melting, and all kinds of, I call it the earth's torturous processes. It's out of torture and agony. Now, the best way to see it is with a pearl. Okay, the pearl, a great price, right? What creates a pearl? It's in the oyster, right? It's the sand, it's the irritation that gets into the
Little
soft tissue,
animals. Yeah. Yeah.
and they have to form a little thing around it with their secretions, make it
Yeah.
soft. It hurts. It hurts. So I do a thing, I imagine I'm at the seacoast and I'm lecturing to oysters, right? And there's, hundreds of them, and I say, now raise your hand. I picture the little hands coming out from the oysters, and they're all going to raise their hand. And I say, how many of you, be honest, raise your little oyster hand, would prefer a lifetime, start to finish, that where you never got sand in there, and you never got irritation, and you never were in pain? How many would prefer that? Oh, all the little oyster hands, of course.
It's
I'd rather
true.
have no
My
pain.
daughter is like this.
Well, okay, and I don't blame him. But if you never have that pain and irritation, guess what? You're never going to form a pearl.
Yeah.
The pearl only comes from pain and suffering. I don't know why, but it's a fact of nature, a fact of life. The gemstone only comes from a profound suffering transformation. It
Well,
isn't just suffering; it's also glory and joy and
yeah.
etc.
I think two parables kind of bring it across. Is I used it yesterday, was just a seed. A seed cannot become a plant if it doesn't first break its shell. And that's painful. And you don't want to do it, but otherwise you die.
Right.
The soul doesn't grow. And the other one that I think is an important way to see it. Oh, I've lost it. I've just lost what it was.
The immunities that the baby has to get from the mother's milk. And the baby has to be exposed to the world to get these immunities. If you protect your baby, never let anything get to him, he won't be healthy.
Yeah.
Because he won't have formed the immunities he needs.
Yeah. On a physical level. Yeah. And then on a soulful level, it's something from Khalil Gibran. He says, it's only through being hollowed out through pain and despair that you can hold more joy. It's the contrast.
Yeah. I hate to think that way, that only through suffering do we live a heroic life. But life will throw us suffering. Get ready for it. Might as well. Mythos about it. If you see it mythically, this is a real profound concept, I think. It will give your suffering meaning.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just suffering in agony and pain.
Nothing. Yes.
A meaning to it. I'm creating a gem out of my life. I'm honing my gift. I won't understand someone else's suffering unless I've suffered. It's what we call the shaman, the wounded healer. You can't really heal.
How do you help people that are atheists? Like I have an auntie and uncle who I love very much, but they're atheist. And so for them, they've lost their son just a few years ago, and they're just suffering because they don't see that there is something more to it than that. So it's just excruciating for them. They're still in tears every day, It's 3-4 years now. And then they don't see that there's something more to it. It's very painful, and I don't know how to comfort them or support them or help them nourish.
One can be atheist and still have a sense of meaning and value and the experience of the numinous, etc.
Do you think so?
Isn't tied to, an atheist doesn't like the doctrines of religion. That's the point I was making earlier, that religion has become doctrinal and you have to believe all this. The atheist says, excuse me, and that's not what I see in my experience anyway. God loves us. God loves us so much. Why did this happen to my son?
Yeah.
No, there's no love. Because if there were a God and he loved us, he certainly wouldn't have done that, right? So, but spirituality is a different thing altogether. It's this feeling of awe.
Mm.
I don't know if they could ever open themselves to a dream that, he would appear and tell them he's all right, something of
Yeah.
that nature. They have to have the experience. Nobody else can do it for
Oh,
them.
I know. But it's just very, very painful to watch someone suffering so much because they don't want to see that there is something more to life. I mean, we're not just physical beings.
Right, right. At the same time, I get disturbed by when very religious people will tell me, their son died, whatever, and they'll say, "Oh, he's in a better place. He's with God now." And then they don't have to feel the horror and the
Oh,
suffering like aunt and uncle are. There's got
yeah.
to be something in between because
Yeah,
then
yeah,
it becomes very superficial. Oh, he's with God. It's all right.
yes.
No, it's not all right that your son died. You got to feel and
Yeah, yeah,
feel the grief. That's natural. You've got to. If you don't feel the grief, it's like you didn't love them. That's what it seems like to me. Maybe
yeah,
you can keep that kind of line with them. The grief you're experiencing is you wouldn't have experienced it if you didn't love him that much.
yeah, yeah,
Testimonial to him and to your
yeah,
love,
yeah,
honors him.
yeah. And then there's nothing behind it. There's nothing numinous. I've tried many times before they even lost their child to have this numinous or for life. There's nothing there. So if there's really nothing there, okay, I'm sure, yeah, it's pretty scary to think when someone dies, there's nothing beyond. Yeah.
I don't know. That might be the truth. I don't know. I don't profess to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. You might want to take this line. It's just interesting. I'm off the topic now again.
Yeah. We both are.
I give a class. You can edit this, right? I give a class in death and afterlife, death and concepts of afterlife, and so it's what all the different religions believe, and I don't profess to know what's what. And I
Yeah.
start with some. I think I have 8 or 9 points of potential evidence of postmortem survival. There might be evidence that some aspect of us survives our physical death. And that's what I'm interested in, evidence. And the last one I saved the best for last, and it would open a door to Eastern spirituality, which is completely different from Western religion, where you're told God loves you and you have to believe all this. I use a certain book, and they might be interested in seeing it, by Ian Stevenson, called 20 Cases Suggestive of Reincarnation.
Okay.
And he has thousands of cases on record. It's fascinating.
Ah.
They're all cases of small children under the age of 5 who, as soon as they could talk, 2.5, 3 years old,
Yes.
they claim to be someone else. They know all the details of another life, always someone who recently died.
Yep.
There's no way the child could know. Some of these children name dates and addresses, and the teen checks out. The child is 99% of the time.
Wow.
She has a case in there of a child who was murdered,
Oh.
and the second child remembers was the murder victim,
Wow.
and he can tell everything and exactly who did it, and he led authorities to where the murder weapon had been thrown.
Wow.
Found it. So how does the second child know everything about this murder?
Yeah, no. I mean, it doesn't surprise me. As a kid, I used to have flashbacks of other lives, and it was very normal to me because I had very open hippie parents. So it doesn't. I was just like, oh, okay, I've been to Greece before, or I've been there. I've been. It wasn't special. It was just very normal. And then 10 years later, I went to a seminar, and someone was talking about past lives, and it was, oh yes, oh that's what that was.
Yeah,
It's kind of drop. Yeah.
Don't have to be spiritual
No.
to entertain this idea.
Yes.
And then there's evidence for it. What about the evidence? How do you account for these small children knowing all this? So you might want to talk to them in that one, show them that book.
Good idea. Yes, thank you. I'll take your advice.
back, death is a stage in the hero's journey.
Mm-hmm.
And then when each of us dies, according to this mythology,
Mm-hmm.
death will be a grand heroic journey too. And we will move into, the next stage, whether it's rebirth or whatever. Death will be a grand hero's journey as well. Now, let me get to the two things. That was the whole subject before I forget. And then we can maybe wrap it because they're two amazing aspects, at least two, that really show a difference between the hero and the Hera. Okay? So the hero's journey follows these stages. Not everyone is the same. Very typically, there's often when the mission statement comes through, here you are to return this droid to Alderaan. Okay, the true hero will sometimes refuse the call. Oh, I can't do that. Oh, I got to get back to the farm. I'm late as it is. I didn't do my chores. Oh, I'm too small. I can't do that. That's actually the mark of a humility. See, but there will be something somewhere in the early part of the journey where the hero or one of the other characters, that's his complex, these are all sub personality aspects of the self, will give expression to the stage we call hubris, the masculine journey. And remember, with Jungian thought, we're all masculine and feminine. So we're all on both journeys at the same time, right? Our masculine self will start out in hubris, which is, arrogance. So there will be some version of an expression, hey, I can do anything. Oh, just pile it on. Hercules is like that. Oh, I can do that. I can wrestle the Nemean lion at 3 years old, etc. And in the crib, right? So in Star Wars, it's actually Han Solo who brings in the dark side, the personal embrace shadow, and he brings the animal with him, the Chewbacca. When they first engage with him, we need a fast ship. See, he is going to express the arrogance I'm talking about. He says, fast ship. You never heard of the Millennium Falcon? Should I have? Well, it's the one that made the Kessel run in less than 12 parsecs. It's fast enough for you, old man. What's the cargo? Okay. So he expresses hubris. Hey, I can do it. Oh, no problem. Just give me more money and I'll do it for you. There's a really amazing scene in the Odyssey toward the beginning, as Odysseus has been shifted off path, when they encounter the Cyclopses, and he's imprisoned in the cave of the Cyclops, and he, and works out a deal because the men can't push the big stone themselves. They blind him. He's got the one eye, and he's still alive, so he can still open and close that. See, and they hold underneath the sheep, the rows of sheep. So he feels all around. He can't feel them. He gets out. All right. So when Odysseus is in the cave with Polyphemus, the Cyclops, he says, wants to know, what's your name? And Odysseus says, I'm nobody. I'm nobody. Okay. So then he blinds, and it's terrible. And then poor Polyphemus comes out, bleeding and in agony. And he calls to his other Cyclopses and he says, nobody has blinded me. Nobody has harmed me. Nobody has stolen my sight. So they all call back, well, if nobody blinded you, you must be able to see just fine, and nobody comes to his aid. So, it was a trick, right? So after the guys are out and he's out back with his ship, Odysseus, he didn't need to do this. This is going to cause him all his problem. He comes back around on the ships to poor blind Polyphemus. He says, I want you to know before I'm gone who hurt you, who did this, who escaped from you. It's Odysseus, ruiner of cities, Odysseus, killer of Trojans, I'm great. I want you to know, raider of cities, those are his titles.
Arrogance, right.
It wasn't nobody, it was Odysseus. Now, that gives the Cyclops the name. So he can pray to his father, Poseidon, god of the sea. Odysseus hurt me, Odysseus. I want you to punish Odysseus. Now he's the god of the sea, so he bats Odysseus around from shore to shore and won't let him get home, all to punish him for what he did for his hubris.
Yes.
But the sun god, Apollo, the sun has promised him that he will see the day of his return. He has power over the day.
Yeah.
So Poseidon can't drown him or kill him. He's going to get home, but he can ruin. He kills every last man. Even the clothes on his back. He loses everything, and he washes up on shore. 20 years later.
Yeah, it's a horrible story.
I want you to know who hurt you. It's Odysseus. There's the statement of hubris. So the whole hero's journey is going to be an effort to break down and humble
Yes.
arrogant
ego self. Yes.
The ego. And he's going to be humbled all the way unto death. And he's going to be humbled so that by the time he comes out, he's whole. He has sign. Oh, it happens with Gilgamesh. Our oldest story in existence is the Epic of Gilgamesh in the Sumerian, going back to 2600 BCE. And it's a grand hero's journey. It has every one of these stages. And he's arrogant in the beginning, Gilgamesh. I can do anything, everything's for me, And the journey humbles him till he's an old man and, broken. And he finds the plant that will make you young again, right? And his first statement is, I'll bring this back to my city and share it with the old men of my city. See, that's humble Gilgamesh. Yeah. The original Gilgamesh would have said, give it to me, it's all mine, See, so the journey humbles the great hero.
Yeah.
Now the female journey, though, is the opposite. And this is the great insight, how the Hera journey is different. The Hera, remember, we're all on a Hera journey as well. She starts out in not just humbled, but humiliated. Those are from the same root: humiliate, humble. Okay, so she starts out in a very low position and low self-esteem, right? It's the opposite of hubris. Okay, and the journey is undertaken to build her up, and give her strength and courage so that she's powerful by the end. Where he starts out in strength and courage and he has to be broken down. And
how interesting.
Yeah, isn't it fascinating? So now here's the example. Okay, Dorothy, she's a farm girl and she gets knocked unconscious in the tornado, right? And there's an amazing scene where she's just now unconscious on the bed in the tornado. She's now dreaming, right? And she sees outside the window, she sees people float by. Auntie M floats by doing her knitting. And that horrible neighbor that wants to kill Toto. She's driving by, riding on her bike, remember, right across the sky. And this amazing moment happens. Oh, God, it needs a drum roll. So exciting. Because consciousness, she's in the unconscious now. She's asleep dreaming. So her consciousness takes a person from her life, the neighbor, and renders her into a mythic being, the Wicked Witch of the West. See, a glorious cape, now she's riding a broom, right? Right in front of her. She becomes a mythical entity, an evil one, of course. Okay. So all of this is mythic. She's in a dream state, right? And she travels the whole story. I won't go through the whole story, but when they eventually get to the wizard, which is this huge thing, nobody just sees the wizard, and she insisted. She had to show courage, all along. And you see these stages where the lion attacks Toto and she stands up to him firmly. Don't you hurt him, right? And she stands up to the wizard. I can't just take that for now. I have to go home, etc., right? So there's an amazing scene. The wizard is all head, one big head, one, collection of consciousness, super consciousness. And when he first talks to the group, he says, who are you? Who is this bothering me? And she gives her mythical title. This is so interesting because her name in the ego's world, the waking world, is Dorothy Gale. Right? But her mythical name, a title, her heroic name, her Hera name, is, she says, I'm Dorothy the Small and Meek. Okay?
Oh, wow.
She starts out, and this is at the beginning, this is way into the picture by now. She's still small and meek. That's her identity. I'm small and meek. And he says, I am the great and powerful Oz. You see? So she is, herself and her consciousness is small and meek. So the whole journey is to show her how she has to produce courage out of herself. She incorporates her mind element, that's the scarecrow. She incorporates her heart element, the Tin Man. She incorporates courage. And something that was so meaningful for me personally when I was going through hell and, writing my book and finishing my GD PhD, I call it that.
YGD?
That's his mythical title. What they through and how scared they made me feel, I hung on to this so it was so meaningful for me that true courage is not feeling afraid. Courage is being terrified and acting anyway.
Doing it anyway. Yep.
Anyway, through your fear. That meant a lot to me. See, personally. So the story, the mythos, the female gains power and courage and vitality and etc. through the journey, and whereas the man has to be knocked down and humbled. Yes. I think that's so interesting. And then the second thing, yes, something you want to say there?
No, it's just that my life, as you were telling this story of the warrior being broken down, I was like, oh, that's me, because I'm very arrogant in some ways, but then at the same time I had no confidence too, so I also had to do, and they sort of crossed at the same time. Yeah, it's very interesting.
That's the very point. Your animus side, your masculine side, is the one that's full of is courage and, you say, arrogance. Your feminine side is scared and
and resisting everything, always want to be perfect before you do anything.
So we've got to build the courage, and we've also got to be knocked down our hubris. So then there's a second thing that I just find so interesting also. The tasks are different. Okay. So the man, the hero, is going to show heroic behavior by fighting the lion, the Nemean lion, by wrestling the Hydra, all of Hercules' 12 labors, right? Fighting off an enemy. It's Superman who's going to fight, to protect the innocent, right? And interestingly, going back to our earlier conversation about history and how we think there was a much older matriarchal indigenous culture across Europe long before the Indo-Europeans come in. The area where it lasted the longest, we think, way into the Roman period, is what we call Asia Minor, today's Turkey.
Yes.
And that's where Herodotus says that Amazon women came from. There's a whole warrior culture of women that was real. We think was real. And the great goddess, they were goddess worshippers in probably female-based power society well into the Roman period. And the Christian emperors are the ones that finally shut down the Artemis temple in Ephesus on the border of Asia Minor. Anyway, Hercules, by the time it's all over, he says the worst, most difficult labor that he had to do of the 12 labors was one of them. He had to go to Lydia, this queendom in Asia Minor, in the mountainous region of what we call Turkey, Western Turkey. And he had to be the subordinate husband of the queen of Lydia. And she's the queen of the Amazon women. So he had to go and live for some period of months subordinate to the queen. That was his hardest labor.
Of course, I can imagine.
Female does anyway. Patriarchy, we're trained to be subservient. You see, that's our key. Subservience. The Hera starts in subservience,
and therefore it is important. Our training is to be confident and to take reign and lead. Yes.
Assertion. Right. So the man, aside from that interesting labor where it places it back in the old matriarchy of the older society, right? That he has to be subordinate to the queen. All his other labors are, muscle, fighting, right? Now, the female labors, it's not the same. The female doesn't go into battle with a sword. Now, the warrior goddesses do, but these Hera journeys are different. Dorothy doesn't go into battle, right? Luke Skywalker does. There's always war somewhere. You get males, they want to fight.
Mhm.
You get the women, they
But
want to make
Frodo,
love.
what about Frodo? Does he go into?
Frodo,
Yeah, he doesn't really fight either, does he?
yes, they do, because the orcs and the those terrible armies are after him all the time. They have to run and hide.
They have to run and hide. Yeah, he's more running and hiding.
Yeah, I don't know if he takes up a sword, but I think Samwise, they protect him.
Yeah, the other people protect him. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But right, as we say, not every hero's journey is exactly the same.
No,
But the tasks and trials are so interesting. So one of the most beautiful of the Hera stories is the story of Psyche, the story of the human soul. And she's going to go all the way unto death and be reborn, just as the caterpillar dies to the old self, and is reborn to the great self, the butterfly, right? So Psyche, I don't know, I'm going to be pulled into telling the whole story.
that's good. Go for
I
it.
really want to do that. Okay, so it's so wonderful. She's born from a tear of the goddess Aphrodite, goddess of love, sheds a silent tear. It was a tear of joy when she was thinking of her lover.
Hmm.
And the tear, because it's from an Olympian immortal, splashes onto the ground, which
Mhm.
is another immortal, Gaia, the great earth mother, and anything that touches her spring up as life.
Oh,
So
wow.
it sprung up as the most darling baby girl, the most glorious, beautiful little infant girl anyone ever saw. She like took your breath away. She was so beautiful, right?
Wow.
And she's an orphan because nobody, who were her parents. So regular people, took her in, adopted her and raised her. And she's so unspeakably gorgeous. This is all a metaphor for the human soul. The
Yeah.
human soul is the most beautiful, glorious thing. It will just take your breath away how magnificent it is.
Mm.
And so growing up, and she has these two sisters, and no one approaches her because they're kind of afraid of her. So I'll give the line, she must be somebody's baby. She must already have a boyfriend. They all think that way. And
Yeah.
the two sisters, they get married, but no one will approach Psyche. And when it comes time for her to be married, the parents don't know what to do. Every
Oh,
girl gets married in a traditional society. So they consult the oracle, right, which they believe never lies. And the oracle says the Psyche is to be married to a monster. And that's all. And so they, okay, well, she came from somewhere, it wasn't natural. We don't even know where she came from. So I guess we're supposed to give her back to the monster. So they have her wedding day. And meanwhile, all through her life, people have stopped worshiping the goddess of beauty and love, and they worship this girl instead.
oh, wow.
People stop worshiping God, and they start to worship the human soul, the human potential. It's Frankenstein. I can create as God creates, and he creates a
Like
monster. See?
science is right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Creating atom bombs and the pollutants.
Yeah,
They're
well,
creating.
they're trying to create babies now in these exterior uteros. It's crazy.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah, we're on our way to Brave New World there.
Yes.
Um, so she says when they're ready to give her away in marriage, she says, it's like a mourning, it's like a funeral. Her wedding day is a funeral because they think they have to give her to the monster. And
Yeah.
she said, it's very humble all along. She says, you should have mourned for me when people started worshiping me instead of the goddess. Because I
Uh,
never asked for that. I'm a nothing. She feels so lost and unwanted. And here she's the most glorious thing anyone ever saw. So they put her on the crag of the mountain, dressed in black. It's like it's her wedding, and a monster's going to come and take her and ravish her and eat her. So the parents are crying and crying, everyone. And she says, "Don't you cry for me. I'm glad to be relieved of this misery because she's so lonely."
oh, really?
So Zephyr, the west wind, comes and picks her up and carries her down into this valley. And there's a mansion made for her, Psyche's mansion, like the unconscious, full of treasures. And
Mm.
in this mansion, well, it's nighttime, so she can't see it, right? The next day when she wakes up, she sees it's gold, it's gems everywhere. The gold and the gems always show up in a hero's journey. The
Yes,
chandelier
there's always a
diamond,
treasure. Yes.
incredible treasure. So it's the symbol of the unconscious and the vast treasures, that are held within the collective unconscious. That's the Jungian view.
Yeah.
And she just thinks of things and voices come out and hands come out and draw her bath, kind of like thing, Yeah. She just thinks and hears voices. I'd like some dinner, please. Oh, and the hands come and serve her. It's like being in the unconscious, being in your inner mind. And her husband, this beast, this monster,
She hasn't
comes.
seen him yet.
Sorry?
She hasn't seen him yet.
Oh, and he comes in absolute total darkness. See? And she figures, well, it's dark because he doesn't want me to see that he's a monster, he's embarrassed. So he comes in total darkness, and this is my favorite part, the way the line goes. It says, he makes her his own. He makes her his own. He owns her, he ravages her.
Sounds like a 50s film.
Yeah. And she's so, it's the most glorious, profound thing ever happened to her, and she loves him so much. Well, he leaves before the light comes up.
Wow.
So it's a husband in darkness. So it's parallel to the unconscious, the ignorance. We all start out in ignorance, and relationships go that way. You're really ignorant of who they really are. You're meeting under cloak of secrecy, whatever. Then you're gonna see what they're really made of over time. So he comes in and ravishes her and delights her, and she thinks of nothing else but him being in his arms. And he always before dawn, And in the daytime, she has everything she wants. She has, food, served to her, and gems and glorious clothes and everything. But over time, he comes each night and leaves before the light. She says, I want to know, she's curious. The Psyche is curious and wants to know and understand. She wants to shed light on, understand. So she first says she's lonely. She's so lonely all day. He leaves and she has nothing to do. So she wants to at least have her sisters come visit. So they do. He says, well, you'll be sorry. They do. And they each married 2 guys now. And each one of them sounds like a monster. A high-powered finance guy, bald and fat and awful, much older, but she's got status, she's got a beautiful house. Each one is kind of a monstrous kind of thing. And they say to Psyche, well, what's with you? This is a monster, remember? And he's such a fabulous lover. I mean, my God, he delights me. Oh, I can't stand to be out of his arms. And they say, all he's doing is fattening you up. He's going to eat you one night. He's a monster. You're fatter. You look fatter now than when we saw you. Okay. So they tell her, he's going to kill you and eat. You better take action, Psyche. Why are you just waiting for it? Get yourself a light, a lamp. And this is called Psyche's lamp, the oil lamp, right? And get yourself a knife, okay? I've got my multi-purpose instrument. A knife and a light, and you wait till he's asleep, and you go over there and you see what a monster he is, and you just stab the life out of him. If you don't, he's going to eat you. Okay, so she's all trepidatious and worried. Oh God, and she does it. She lights her lamp. See, the human Psyche sheds light on it, wants to know, and doesn't want to be in ignorance. So she goes over with her. She's trembling, with her knife in her other hand. She goes over to him, right? And he's, how the light will move up, on the screen to see who he is, right? She thinks he's a monster, right? And what she sees, oh my God, in the light, she's mesmerized. It's a boy. It's a young man, boy. He's the age, he just has the slightest little furry down on of a mustache, over his lip. That's the age he is. And he's got these gorgeous eyelashes, long black eyelashes, and he's little blonde curls, every curl going a different direction. She's just mesmerized staring at him. And she notices he's got these magnificent, brilliant white wings. and his down feathers, and she's like mesmerized watching him breathe, and the feathers dance as he breathes in and out, back and forth. And she notices he's got these arrows, and she reaches out to quiver and arrows, and she reaches out to one. She tricks her finger on his arrow, and she's staring at him, and she's just absolutely stunned. It's the most beautiful, glorious young man she's ever seen in her life. How can this be a monster? And she's, holding the lamp, and she doesn't notice that some of the oil, hot oil, is, dripping out, and it falls on his shoulder. It wakes him up, and the most magnificent blue eyes, open up to her, and they see each other locked, eye to eye, close up. She sees he's gorgeous. He's the most beautiful man she's ever seen in her life. And he opens his eyes and he says, you saw me. You weren't supposed to see me. No way. Oh, now you've ruined it, Psyche. Your curiosity is going to ruin your life. That's human nature. That's the Psyche. So he flies off, and leaves her there alone. And she lost her husband, and she's pregnant. And she saw who he was. He was the god of love himself, Eros.
Eros.
From whose name we derive our word erotic. Right?
Yeah.
God of love. He's known as Cupid in the Latin, or Amor. Okay,
yeah.
So she's lost him. And now she just wanders and wanders. Now she can't even live with herself. She's so in love, crazy in love, right? And can hardly, doesn't want to do anything, wants to die. And
I want to cry. This is terrible.
Yes, it's a good story.
Yes.
Heroic journey, girlfriend.
Sounds like my journey right now.
Oh, you're building your gem. Let's see how it works out for her. See? And then you'll be inspired. Because she's out there searching for him now. And she said, well, do you know where he went? Do you know where's the god of love? And how do you find him? His mother, Aphrodite, is coming right at her. Oh, you're the one. You stole my darling son. You injured my boy. He's in the hospital. And he has a little burn. And has a burn on his shoulder. He's in the hospital. You abused my darling boy. And he wasn't supposed to fall in love with you. See, the goddess, is jealous because people stopped worshiping her and started worshiping the dead. And you're stealing my, love and, my energy.
All love, yeah.
Yeah, you're stealing it all. And you're not worthy. You're a human. You're a mortal, You don't deserve my son. And she sent her naughty boy son down to cause her, with his arrow, to fall in love with a monster. But when he saw her sleeping,
he couldn't.
And he saw the most glorious, beautiful woman he'd ever seen in his life. And he pulls his, arrow out and he pricks his own finger. You're shot by the arrow of the god of love. The first one you look at, you're going to be crazy in love with her, right? Okay, so he's totally in love with her. And he didn't do what his mother said. His mother's real mad at him now. And she's very mad at her. She says, you are the cause of my son's suffering, and you're stealing my son from me. How dare you? You'll never get it. And the other goddesses try to calm her down, let the girl earn him back. So she said, all right, I'm going to give you tasks. There are 4 tasks. And each one is impossible. And the goddess thinks that, I'll give her 4 impossible tasks and she'll fail. Yeah. And then she'll know she didn't earn her husband back. See, you pass these tests and you can get him back. Okay, and already pregnant. All right, so the 4 tasks. So the goddess brings her to this warehouse that's huge, like a warehouse, and the floor is covered with seeds, all kinds of mixed up seeds, billions of seeds, right? And she throws her down. She says, all right, by morning, by dawn, you organize all these seeds into piles, and the seeds that belong to each other. Oh God, how can I do that? It's billion, And the first thing she does is fall asleep. Haven't we all been there? You have some big task to do, or you have
just want to sleep.
Just want to go to sleep ahead of time. Yes. Avoid it. So she does. She goes to sleep, and while she's sleeping, ants thousands of ants who are called the nimbling nurslings of the earth, the
Oh.
nimble nurslings of the earth. They come out and they're busy all night long carrying the seeds, you see, and putting them all into the proper pile. So that when she wakes up, they're all organized. She got
Wow.
all of us, when we're on our heroic journey, we open ourselves and we do our best. We're going to get divine help. That's the idea, extraordinary help. So she wakes up and it's all done, and Aphrodite is sure to find her, and not done, and here it is. And she says, "Oh God, how'd you do it?" "Well, I did it." Now this is just so cool because the imagery, pricking your finger on his arrows, of course, the sexual imagery, right?
Yeah.
But now look at the woman's tasks she has to do.
Mm-hmm.
The man is going to shoot at her 200 million seeds all at once. And her task is to organize, to make structure out of this chaos of seeds.
Yeah.
She's supposed to bring out one out of 200 million, and merge her little seed with his seed and conceive a baby. And that's how we all were born.
Yeah.
So the female's task is to organize a proliferation, of seeds, of potentiality.
Wow. Oh, interesting. Yes.
And then the second task, she has to go, she says, collect me some of the fleece of the golden rams. Okay, the golden fleece. Just some strands. Okay, go do that. God, how do I do that? So there's this immortal race of rams who are gold, right? And they run and jump and play, on this one field. And little Psyche, who's small, you see, small and meek and pregnant, has to go in among the rams, right? Who are so masculine, and bashing like middle of the football game of the Rams, a little girl comes in. She's supposed to collect their fleece. How do I do that? I'll be smashed, So somebody else warns her, wait till they all go to sleep. Wait till the game's over, they're tired. They all go to sleep. She goes tiptoeing through so lightly, and she just takes some fleece off of the bushes they've rubbed against, and some of their fur is in the bushes. She just collects some strands that way. And she's able to show the goddess, okay, here's strands from the real, golden fleece of the golden rams. Oh, God, Aphrodite is so disgusted. She's passing every one of these tests. Now, the third test is she gives her a flask, a pear-shaped crystal flask. She says, bring me some water the river Styx.
River Styx is in the
underworld. Flows up from the underworld, from Tartarus to the highest point on Mount Olympus. See, and it comes out as this magnificent waterfall, and then it goes all the way down into the underworld. Styx is this circular, mandala, right? And you got to go up to the waterfall? You can't. How am I going to climb out there? So the eagle of Zeus sweeps in. He says, "Climb on." See, she gets divine help. So she climbs on and hold on. He flies her right up to the flow, the eternal, overwhelming flow of the life-giving waters, you see. And she just reaches out her little crystal flask and fills it with enough and gives it to the goddess. See, this again, the masculine is flowing with the aqua nostra, the revivifying waters of life. The seed, the watery seed, the semen, teeming with life, billions and billions. Oh my God, it's overwhelming.
And what about the wool? The wool, what's the wool signify?
Oh, the wool is the rams, the golden wolves, the masculine element coming from bashing and fighting. And she has to collect some of the masculine element, you see. It's the female who needs to incorporate the masculine, the animus.
Okay.
So with our own little womb, our pear-shaped little crystal womb, we women, our task is to collect, from the eternally flowing waters of potential life. We're supposed to just collect a little bit of it, and give birth to a baby, you see. So she goes up with her pear-shaped, womb-shaped little flask, and she brings back that much water. Okay, I'm reminded of people in the U.S. Who from Indian descent who bring a flask of water from
Ganga
the Ganges.
water. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's holy on their altar, you know. All
Yeah.
right, so she did it. She did all the tasks, and Aphrodite's disgusted, and she won't let her son. Her son keeps saying, "I want to see her." You know, no, you know, forbidding it. And the last task, the fourth task is, she gives her a box. Bring me some beauty from the goddess of the underworld, from Persephone, my sister.
Mm.
How are you going to go talk to the gods of the underworld, the gods of death? In other words, the task is you have to die.
No.
You have to sacrifice yourself now. And she thinks then I'll be rid of her, you know.
Yeah.
And so Psyche thinks she's gonna kill herself. How else does she get down there, you know? And she doesn't know what to do. All along, she's, you know, flustered and has no self-esteem, you know, no courage. She doesn't know what to do. And the great different beings and deities warn her and tell her what to do. I think she encounters Pan at this point, the god of the woods. He says, "You don't have to die." She's about to throw herself off a cliff. And he says, "You don't have to die. Come here, come with me. I'll show you there are caves. There are ways like
Go
spelunking
down.
in the underworld without dying." And that's what she does. She
Wow.
has her box and she actually goes up to great Persephone. She's called Pale Persephone because she never sees the light, you know. And she says, "I'm here to collect a box of beauty." All right. "Oh, my sister Aphrodite, goddess of beauty, wants some of my beauty." "Oh, I'm so thrilled." You know, so somehow she puts some beauty into the box, right? And gives it to Psyche. Now, Psyche's going to come up from the underworld with divine beauty in her hands, right? And earn her husband back now.
Oh,
And she's thinking, "My God, I was just in contact with the gods, and the gods, you know, I have divine beauty in my hands. You know, I should use some of it." She's become older and haggard with all of this wandering and all this journey and all these tasks she's had to do, you know. "I should beautify myself for my husband to get him back, you know." So she thinks she'll just open that box of beauty a little bit and get some beauty. You know? What happens is she opens it, and this profound, deep, deep sleep takes over her, and she falls asleep. It's an unnatural sleep. Now, it's so interesting and almost
I don't think it's good. I'm getting all nervous now.
of these hero journeys. If you look closely, you'll see there's what we call the big sleep just toward the end. As they have the goal in sight, they fall unnaturally asleep, which, by the way, happened to me too on my great hero's journey to earn the goddamn PhD. When I had the goal in sight, I experienced burnout, like so bad I couldn't even function. I just went into this deep, not sleep, but you know, dysfunction. I couldn't even look at it.
Yeah.
A few years I was burnt out.
Yeah, I've had it too.
The big sleep. Yeah. And then Dorothy, when they first see the Emerald City, that's when they go off the yellow brick road through the poppy field. They all fall asleep, right?
The same with Frodo. He can't.
Frodo,
It gets closer and closer. He gets tired and tighter. Yeah.
Can't wake up. And Han Solo shows the big sleep when he is frozen in carbonite.
Yes.
Put into this death-like condition, right? So watch these heroes. It's amazing how the big sleep will show up in the Bible. As Jesus knows what's coming the next day, you know, in the Garden of Gethsemane, and the disciples are with him, and he's scared. You know, he knows what's going to happen. He's going to be executed the following day, and he keeps trying to wake them up. "Can't you wake up? Can't you stay with me?" They can't wake up. It's, you know, they betray him, right? They cannot stay up with him. So Psyche now falls into this deep, deep sleep, right? And this is so great. All of us girlfriends will appreciate the secret, the divine secret of beauty. Sleep. That's the beauty secret. Get enough sleep. It's going to make all the difference for your beauty and your feeling and energy, right? You need deep sleep. Okay, the beauty secret of the goddesses. Never forget, all right? Yeah. So now she's asleep. And this is the story of Sleeping Beauty too, right? Oh, and Arthur. Arthur is wounded by Mordred, and goes into this deep, deep sleep. He can't wake and he can't sleep. He can't live and he can't die, till he gets the grail, till Percival finds the grail. And a little tiny sip of the blood, revivifying life energy, wakes him up. So he's
Wow.
slowly dying for 2/3 of the story. So that's the big sleep. So as she's asleep, Eros is undergoing his transformation in his heroic journey too, because he's
Oh,
still
yes, I was
the mother.
wondering, what's he
So
doing? He just waits for
he's
her.
tied to the mother, and he's like a prisoner because he's in the hospital with his little burn. So he has learned she's going to keep him away from the love of his life.
Mm.
That's not right. So he learns to stand up to her. He learns some courage too, and he breaks from the mother. So every mother, every parent should, be ready for this in the teenage years. The kids are going to be, rebellious and hate you or whatever, right? They won't hate you, but a sweetheart.
Well, they
But
say a lot.
they're going to rebel. You be ready and you say some prayer and of thanks when they do, because the younger generation has to rebel. They
Mm.
have to find some way to differentiate themselves from the parents, because otherwise they're just the same, and it isn't authentic, and it isn't their path. Then society will never transform if every generation just grows up to be like the ones before them, right?
Yeah.
So you be glad when your child starts to rebel. And so Eros has, in your face rebelled against his mother and said, "You don't control me anymore." So he has grown a backbone, he has grown a pair, as it were, right? And he stands up to her and he says, I'm going with my wife, not my mother telling me what to do.
Mm.
Somehow I'm thinking of Prince Harry here in the back of my mind. I'm going with my wife. I'm going to do what I think is best. I'm going to turn my back. I'm going to, assert myself and stand up to the whole, colossal inheritance of this firm, And he had courage to do that. Whatever else we think of their saga, it was a heroic journey and certainly an authentic path, because he's creating his own, he's authoring his own
Own
path.
way. Yeah. And the
Eros,
difficult way, not the easy way.
yeah, the difficult way, of course. He's growing, gemstones, as it were, and
Yeah.
pearls. So is she, in the family. All right, so Eros. Oh yes, I forgot. I'm going to go back to it. But to finish the story, he flies to her as she's asleep,
Mhm.
and he's free of the mother and in the light, so she can see him. And he awakens her and picks her up. Your curiosity is going to kill you, you know, and he's the true husband in the light. So now we can see it's conscious, right?
Yeah.
And he brings her back up, and he insists to his mother, "This is my love. We're married. She's pregnant. We're,
We're going
you
for
all have to recognize it." And he goes to Zeus, and Zeus says, "Aphrodite, goddess of love, you spread love through every creature in the whole cosmos, to every god, every worm, everybody in between, every animal. You spread love everywhere, and you won't allow it in your own house to
Mm.
your own son. That's not right." And all the gods agree. She's got to soften here, and she's got to, accept this. And then they have a glorious wedding on Mount Olympus, and she is made immortal.
Oh, wow.
So, and her child will be immortal. This is called the apotheosis, the end result of the hero's journey. The mythical name is apotheosis, made over into God. You are rendered into the divine. It's the
Yes.
same thing in yoga. Yoga means union
Yes.
with the divine. So when you reach self actualization and enlightenment, you know the mind of God. You are Advaita, no different
Mm.
from Godhead, from Brahman. Atman is Brahman. You realize that, and you become a self-realized. That's the
Yes.
goal. God
Exactly.
realized being. That's the goal of yoga.
Yes.
Apotheosis. See, so that's what happens to Psyche. And when her child is born, it's a girl. She's immortal. She's called Joy,
Joy.
joy or pleasure. Now,
Mm.
I skipped a scene. Now I'm going back, because this is the 2 points I'm making, at
Yes.
least these two, that are different for the Hera compared to the hero. So our first is that the hero starts in hubris and has to be torn down, knocked down, humbled. And the Hera begins in humiliation and has to rise to the level of courage and strength. Okay. Now, the other thing that's so interesting, and the way that I framed it, the tasks are different. You know,
Yeah.
where Hercules wrestles a lion, Psyche has to just go get a flask of water,
Little thing.
isolate the seeds, or
Yeah.
just go tiptoe through. She does it in a subtle way. And this is the really hard thing, though, for the female to do. I saw it elsewhere. Yes, I saw it in an episode. It's exactly the same task of Psyche. When she goes into the underworld, the fourth task, her most difficult thing she had to accomplish. It's so interesting to see this. On her way down to meet Persephone, she's going through the corridors of the underworld, right? And she's seeing these people all along, like on the ground, calling and crying, help me, I'm in pain, I'm in agony. They're in the underworld, they're dead or dying.
Yes.
See, and she has to pass right by them.
Not help.
That's it. Her greatest task and most difficult task she ever faced was to keep going and refuse her female feeling to help them, to stop and help. She has to deny her feminine quality.
Yeah.
That is the animus, shows her courage and strength. You can't stop and help every one of these people, or you'll be all used up. You'll be burned out. You won't make it to your goal. It's the same thing in medicine, triage. You can't start feeling bad for anyone, right? You got to have courage and strength. You got to not care that he's crying in pain and say, this one's hurt worse. We got to get him in first, right? Yeah. And I'm remembering because all truth will eventually show up on Star Trek.
You said this before.
Yeah, because it's true, because it's a truism. And it's myth. This is modern myth. Star Trek, Star Wars, this is mythology told in our form of the 21st century. In space, we're in the space age. We're fascinated with aliens and space travel. So that's how our mythology is being read back to us, you see, how we're projecting it. So there's an episode in Voyager, which I think is the best Star Trek, and it's a female captain. And that's another of my Heras, Captain Janeway. And Kess, okay, so she's a sweet little innocent virginal girl, like Dorothy the small and meek. And she has this episode where she has to ignore the aliens are taking over and they're making the fantasy, making it hallucinate and think we're hurt and in trouble, and we're not. It's a hallucination. So she has to go through the corridors of the ship, see, and everyone's crying and calling, help me, I'm in agony. She has to ignore them. She has to, be strong enough to put down a shield. I cannot let sympathy and empathy
drag me down. Yeah.
Compassion drag me down. I have to deny compassion to be strong and to raise to courage and strength. And I find that so interesting about the female, that we are naturally compassionate and it's our strength. But our heroic journey, if we want to make something of ourselves and get somewhere, we have to incorporate the animus, and we have to forego our natural instinct to be compassionate in every case. It's interesting, isn't it?
Very, very, very. Yes.
And I talked and talked, and I think I got to the end now.
Hey.
Journey on, brave warriors.
Yes, and we're going to go on our journeys now. Wow, that was so wonderful. Thank you, Sharon.
Okay. Yes. Do you think that's a good ending?
Yes, yes. I wouldn't know what to ask right now. I mean, because
mesmerized by the story. Oh, wait a minute. Yes. Oh, God.
What?
Oh, you're still recording because I forgot. Yes. Oh, I'm so glad I remember. I'd be so upset with myself if I forgot. When she's made into a goddess, and that means the human psyche is rendered divine, right? She says, but wait a minute, the oracle is never wrong. The oracle said, I'm to be married to a monster. And instead, I have this gorgeous, magnificent guy, like he's the most beautiful young man anyone ever saw. as she is, right?
Uh-huh.
And they answer, they tell her, honey, sweetheart, you are married to a master. Love, he's the god of love. You'll relate to. Love is the greatest monster ever unleashed in the history of the world. Because if you
Thank you
never
for that,
love,
Sharon. Yes, yes,
love
it's
what
very
inside.
painful. Yeah.
Love gives us all our pain and agony, unless it's broken leg or you're sick, with the
Yeah,
flu.
but that's much
I don't
easier
mean that.
to handle.
Back to your life. I will ask the students, anybody here, raise your hand. Have you been through suffering?
Mm.
Of course they all do. Now think of this thing that caused you suffering. I don't mean a physical ailment,
Mm.
emotional. Was love involved?
Mm.
Did you love somewhere, somehow, somebody, and lost them or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
Then you suffered.
Yeah.
Love is the greatest monster in world history.
But yeah, it's a sword with two edges.
Great.
Yes.
A monster, and we all want it, but it's a monster.
That's a good way to describe it. That makes us less
Yes, it
inclined
makes
to
it
run after.
meaningful. Suffering meaningful.
Yes. Yes. It brings the meaning. Yeah.
See? It's a monster. Now, two stories are spun off of this, but don't have the brilliance of the original myth. Cinderella is the collapsed myth. So Aphrodite is the angry mother. Remember the two sisters?
Mm-hmm.
That's the evil stepmother and two stepsisters.
Yes.
And you see it, Cinderella, she has to clean up the cinders in the fireplace.
Yeah.
That's the seeds.
Yeah.
And then Eros, Prince Charming comes at midnight. The whole story is a
Yes.
spin-off of the
Yes.
myth of Psyche and Eros. And then the other one that ruins the essence and the subtlety is the story called Beauty and the Beast. That's
Yes.
story of
That's what I
Psyche.
was thinking about when you said that.
He's obvious visual beast, so you lose the subtlety.
Mm.
And I don't know, at the end of the kiss and he turns into Prince Charming and a beautiful guy. You miss the subtlety of calling
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
monster a beautiful monster. Why do we all want a monster? We all want that, the greatest treasure is the greatest monster. So we're back to Joseph Campbell saying, follow your bliss, which is another way of saying live the authentic life and follow your own authored path.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't find your bliss, because it'll have people saying, I want to follow my bliss, I just can't find my damn bliss. What is it? He'll say, follow your agony, identify your agony, which most people can do. Your bliss will be in that.
Mm-hmm. That's how I found it too, because I had it a long time. I was like asking my teachers, yoga teachers and other mentors, what is my dharma? What is my mission? Yeah. And they couldn't tell me. Or one of them said, which I thought was terrible at the time, but later was true, is whatever's in front of you, that's your dharma. But then when I had this burnout and the perimenopause come together, that was like the dark night of the soul for me. I was like what you said, it was just black, black inside, black in my heart, black in my mind.
Yeah, it's a black stage. It's called Grado. Yeah.
Yeah.
Depression.
Yeah. Well, it was worse. I've had depression lots of times, but this was worse. This was just, there was nothing. And there was emotions taking over, but I didn't know what to do with myself, and I could self-regulate for years, for decades, and none of it was working. None of my tools were working. And that's why I started studying emotions, and that's what's helped me to ride the emotions, to understand what's happening in my body and work with them. So I was going into the agony and understanding the agony and working with it.
Yes, and you found your bliss in your life's calling.
Yes.
And now you're helping others through this because you went through it. And if you hadn't gone through it, you wouldn't have turned to this path.
No, and now it's so easy for me to talk about this. Like when this, just for example, the workshops that I do, I can just stand there in full confidence saying that it's okay to be a mess. It's okay to have these horrible emotions. It's okay to struggle because I know they're going to get out because I got out. I did it. So you can do it too.
God bless you. Goddess bless you. That's
Yes,
wonderful.
God has blessed you, Sharon.
The boon that you're giving to all humanity. You transformed yourself, and now you have the power to give that gift to us.
Yeah.
Goddess bless
Yeah.
you.
I love you. You're wonderful. You two are a beautiful gem, and I'm so glad we got to know each other.
Yes, yes. This is the second of many. That's all.
Yes. Let's do that.
We're talking, and it all comes out, and I hope
Yeah.
it's okay.
And you know what I feel with you when we're talking? It's like at the same time we're touching myths, we're touching psych, but we're also touching this moment. And you bring in Harry, and you bring in Star Trek, and you bring in all these things, and it's everything, you know, it's all of it
Connected.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and I'm having fun.
Yay! Yeah, me too. I'm
following my bliss. That's for sure.
Yeah, great.
Along the way, but we are here now. I'm retired. Yay! Now I can
Yay!
I'm still doing work in the world for others.
Yeah. So how is that? How's that treating you?
Great. Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
This it's called meetup.com. I don't know if you have it followed.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just people that form groups and go out and do fun things. And I'm kind of plugged into some groups. And, I'm having a ball. I'm just having fun.
Excellent.
My car died the other night. I haven't got a car. But the car is a symbol of the soul chariot. See?
Yes.
So a new car, it's a new self. You know, it's breath, earth. All of these are stages in alchemy.
Yeah.
Maybe sometime next time, whatever, if you want me back on the podcast, I can do the whole thing on alchemy because it's really, really
okay. Let's do that next time. I'll write it down.
Alchemical style.
Yeah. Great. Yes. Wonderful.
Thank you, Shara, for giving me this opportunity, and I'm having
fun. It's my pleasure. I love this, and I love to talk with you and your wisdom. You bring so many things together. It's very educational. So I very much appreciate it.
Thank you. You're the one that invited me.
Yes, of course. I'm really learning a lot from you. Okay.
Onward,
here.
Heroic path.
Yeah.
Onward on the heroic path. Show heroic effort and create your gemstone and form your pearl.
Yes, because the world needs it.
Yeah. What gift are you seeking out and pursuing that you're going to be able to offer to the world? What is your gift for the world? You answer that.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Bye, everyone. Go find that beautiful pearl.
Yeah. Thank you, Shara.
Thank you.
Okay, and recording.